Before he ever helped design some of the most progressive rods and lines in Scandinavia, he was a kid on the Swedish coast tying his first flies and chasing sea-run browns with whatever gear he could get in his hands. He didn't know then, but that curiosity, those early casts in salty wind and tight little streams would eventually pull him into the center of modern Scandinavian Spey innovation. Today, that kid is Tellis from Guideline, a world champion caster, Guideline's rod and line developer, and one of the leading voices behind the short head revolution that's reshaped how anglers fish across Europe and beyond. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best resources and tools to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. In this episode, you're going to hear how Scandinavian public waters pushed anglers to innovate faster than anywhere else, why shooting heads kept getting shorter, and what actually separates Skagit and Scandi lines today. We're also going to find out how Tellis approaches Atlantic salmon versus steelhead, and what decades of rod design have taught him about power, timing, and feel. Plus, we're going to find out how they are making their products more environmentally sound and creating less impacts around the world and on the fish species we love. Okay, let's get into it. You can find Tellis at guidelineflyfish.com. How's it going, Tellis?
Yeah, it's good. Winter is just coming around the corner and the rods are slowly collecting a little bit of dust in between casting practices and in the long wait for spring.
Right. Yeah, well, this is going to be fun because I'm not even sure exactly where are you at right now physically.
Gothenburg, Sweden. So we're on the west coast of Sweden, Scandinavia.
Oh, cool. Sweden. Yeah, this is great. We've had a few episodes in that part of the world. It's a hot spot, right? You got Sweden, Norway. We're going to talk today about Guideline. We've been using your stuff. We've been talking a lot about you. I know we've been heading up to specifically Togiak River Lodge. I got my first chance to swing for Chinook up there and was using your stuff. So we're going to talk about that, but you aren't only, into that. You kind of cover everything over there, and you're kind of basically a powerhouse as far as kind of on the Europe side of the pond. So we're going to talk about everything that Guideline does. We'll get into all that, maybe focus a little bit on Spey because two-handed casting is a big struggle. We had a meeting last night with our Wet Fly Swing Pro community, and Tim was mentioning like, man, I really want to get into Spey casting. He hasn't done it yet, right? So we have a lot of people, I think, that are sitting there. They want to get into it, but they're not sure where to start. So we're going to talk about that today, but take us back real quick on fly fishing. What's your first memory? How'd you get into it?
Oh, it's actually this fall, well, right about now. It's actually exactly 30 years ago started. Tied a few flies, and then I got my first fly fishing kit single-handed at Christmas of '95. So I started out trout fishing, both the coast. We fish a lot for sea-run browns along the coast. So that was my main thing in the beginning, as well as stocked rainbow trout, some wild brown trout streams that we have here around Gothenburg. So that's how I started, and then I came into swinging flies and salmon in 2002. That's when I started swinging flies. And it's actually due to the fact that I tried a double end rod and Spey casting and just fell in love with it. So
Right. So that's your thing. So you're into so pretty much from the start, you've been into the Spey game and all that?
Yeah, and it's something. I mean, today, if I can swing a fly for any species, I would do so. It doesn't need to be salmon, even though it's still high in the hierarchy for me. It's the whole flowing water, the river fishing. It's something with that just resonates with, my soul and everything. It's just, if I can swing a line and a fly through a stream, that's my top game for sure.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, we talked to a lot of people. Steelhead, over here obviously is popular. Where you're at, you've got Atlantic salmon, you've got sea-run brown trout, and here you have ups and downs. Some areas where maybe the runs aren't that great in the year, and it can be tough, right? And I know I was talking to Steve there last night as well, and he was saying, man, I got skunked last time I went steelhead fishing, but he keeps going for it, right? He's still going for it. What's your take on that? Do you guys have in your area? I know you're kind of in a hot spot. Do you find yourself fishing more for Atlantic salmon or brown trout? And how are the numbers there? Are you able to find some fish out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's been ups and downs. And I mean, Atlantic salmon across the globe is, of course, it is a worrying state and declining numbers. But here in between, you see rivers that picking up solid numbers. This summer was, of course, a very positive trend, even though it was a solid run of grills, both in Norway, well, all over Scandinavia, even in Scotland, even though they were struggling a lot with extreme low water. The numbers of fish entering the rivers this year was definitely better than last year, because last year was catastrophe. I mean, they closed 33 of the major rivers in Norway.
Wow.
Just like 3 weeks into the season, they just closed it. So it's been worrying, but this year was definitely, we started seeing some light in the tunnel, and for me, it was a good season. Definitely.
Yeah, good here. Well, I want to talk, we're going to go deep into Guideline. Maybe take us back there a little bit on Guideline. Do you know a little bit of the history on Guideline? Can you talk about that? I'm not sure how long before you got into fly fishing that Guideline was out there, but they've been going a while, right?
Yeah, the first products that came out of Guideline was actually in the beginning of the 90s, 91. Then the brand name Guideline was funded in, I think it was 93. It was in Norway, so it was a Norwegian company with a lot of work and collaboration with Swedish office. And then in 2001, the Swedish Guideline started. So it's two parts. You have the Norwegian and the Swedish, where the Swedish is the biggest one, and where we also have the main warehouse for all our global distribution. And in the beginning, Guideline was definitely a salmon, sea trout brand, double hand stuff. Pioneers within modern type shooting heads with multiple densities. But slowly Guidelines started growing more and more and became not just salmon and trout, but today, as you mentioned, we are very global covering brands, and we have everything more or less from Euronymphing to the salt scene and Spey stuff. I joined Guideline in 2022. I used to run my own business, and then they brought an offer I couldn't refuse. So I joined the product developing team and closed my company down. Well, I still have some hosted trips and courses and stuff, but my main focus today is the product developing. Rods and lines is on my table, so to speak.
Yeah, rods and lines. Okay. Yeah, well, tell me about that. So 2022, this is amazing. I mean, they must have given you a pretty amazing offer. What were you doing before? What was your company before?
I had my own small, it started out with courses and trips and stuff like that, and a lot of fly tying materials.
Yeah, on fly fishing. This was focused on fly fishing?
Yeah. I've never really had a normal job, so to speak.
Right.
So I started my own company in 2006, and I had a web shop, fly tying materials, and then slowly grew within that, and I had my own small brand of rods and lines for a few years, about 10 years. And I knew a lot of people within Guideline because I'm also based in Gothenburg, and the company's been based in Gothenburg since 2001. So we knew about each other as well, very well. And then, they contacted me and we had a few meetings, and then what they offered was it felt perfectly right. So a new chapter in my life started.
There you go. What do you think Guideline? Because I remember Guideline at the early days too, when they first got started. I think you were doing some stuff already coming across across the pond to North America, I believe, in those early days. But what do you think it is that Guideline, kind of did best early and maybe does best now? Because you kind of cover it all now, like you said, right?
Yeah, today we are definitely, especially when it comes to the rods and lines, we're definitely stepped up the game across the board, and as well as what we call software or the soft goods, waders, jackets, and apparel, and all those kind of things has slowly but steadily became of a much higher quality. So today we have a really good offer of, the whole range of equipment a fly angler needs. And I think in the beginning, prior to my time, when Guideline came over to the continent, they came with mainly the double-handed stuff, as that was relatively new compared to here in north of Europe, where the tradition of spey fishing and double-hand rods is, of course, it's back to the 1900s. So I think that was Guideline's or Scandinavian brands overall. That's been our strength. But to be able to cover more and more and offer better equipment throughout the whole scene of fly fishing is, of course, I think that's been the key why we are succeeding much, much better this time.
Right. That's it. So, well, we're going to probably talk and bounce around a little bit, talk about your gear. Looking at it now, yeah, it looks amazing. You got a ton of stuff here. I did want to focus on Spey a little bit, like we talked, because I think that we have a nice chunk of people that are really interested. They're either doing it or they're getting ready to do it. Maybe do you know a little bit could you talk about the history of Spey? I know over here we went through this little revolution of people doing it in the 80s, and then the early 90s, there was a small group of people that started kind of going crazy and figuring things out. And then was Guideline, does this go way back before then on the Spey with Guideline, or the people, and the Spey out there and on that side, say in Scandinavia?
Well, in Scandinavia, double hand tradition or Spey fishing it's been around since the 60s. A little bit later into Norway. Well, of course, Norway has had a tradition of a lot of double hand fishing for salmon since 1800s due to the British. But when it came to average Joe's kind of, because that was in the beginning of the salmon fishing in Scandinavia, in Norway in particular, that was mainly the very rich British coming over, renting or taking over the full rivers with more or less a luxurious lodge and stuff. While here in Sweden, it's always been more public. We still have way more public waters. And that's why I think in general, why it's so much innovation in the modern double hand fishing or Spey fishing has come from Sweden is due to the fact that we're fishing public waters. So you need to be better than the next guy, because otherwise you won't catch anything.
Right. Wow.
So I think, back in the 60s, even before they were commercialized, people cutting double tapered lines, putting monofilament behind it, creating types of shooting heads and stuff like that. But then in the beginning of the 80s, we started seeing these custom shooting heads coming out. And I think the big boom was in the late 80s, beginning of 90s, where also then Guideline came into the picture with the first line, which was the power taper. Prior to that, Loop was, of course, very big with their custom, as it will call. Guideline pushed it a little bit further by a little bit changing the taper and making it more not just a cut DT kind of taper, but it made a big difference with that line. It was what I mentioned before. In many ways, kind of a pioneer, started doing multi-densities versions of these as well. So there's been a lot of modern tradition that comes out of both, of course, Norway and Sweden. Even Denmark has a lot of great, they also have some great salmon anglers, Finland as well. But a lot comes out of Sweden and Norway when it comes to what we today refer as the modern Spey casting, modern Spey fishing.
Right. That makes sense. And it's really interesting. We've heard about that recently, the fact that you have Norway and has all these amazing historic waters, but a lot of them are private and you got to have a lot of money. And then Sweden has this public water. What about Finland and Denmark? Is there a lot of public land there as well, public water?
Yeah, I would say that, every country has a little bit different systems, but in general, Denmark and Sweden, even though Denmark has way less rivers, and it's a much smaller country, they have a little bit about the same daily licenses or weekly license, even though it might be you have quotas or you have limitations within how many licenses you have. Finland and Sweden are quite the same, but Finland's rivers are more destroyed through hydro dams.
Oh, right.
Overfishing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of Finnish guys coming over the Baltic to fish the northern Baltic rivers of Sweden. Because we do, even though Sweden has also been very bad at destroying our rivers. Majority, or more or less all the big rivers in Sweden has at least a handful of big hydro dams.
Hydro dams, right. With fish passes, do they usually put a fish ladder in those?
Some of them, yes. But the problem is there might be a fish ladder, but it's just
Not good.
Someone who, exactly. Someone who shouldn't have built it got the job.
Right. we deal with that here too. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of dams, small and big, and we're taking out, a lot of big ones. You've probably heard, the Klamath River.
Yeah.
So there's some good stuff going, but there's a lot of dams out there still that are complete. The Columbia River is a great example. All the famous rivers on the Deschutes and all those. I mean, if you go up the Columbia, there's a giant dam that's a complete barrier, for thousands of miles that goes up into Canada that fish have no access to. So I feel like it's going to be something we've got to work on for not only our lifetimes but years to come, right?
And that's the thing. I mean, what we see here in Sweden, just like you guys as well. I mean. Those huge dams in those big rivers that actually they are producing electricity of a valid amount, but we have so many, like for example here, the main office Guideline here in Gothenburg, we have a small local salmon river. It's just literally outside my window. That dam, it produces so little electricity, so it doesn't serve a purpose.
Not doing anything.
That's the main thing in Sweden. If we have about 2,000 dams, where if we would demolish like 1,800 something about them, we will lose like 2% of the capacity.
Right. So it's a no-brainer, but it costs money, right? It costs money to remove dams.
And so much what they call culture things. So this dam has been here since blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Historic. Yeah, we deal with that. It's all the same. I think there's always going to be people that want to keep their dams for historic purposes. But I feel like, in this country, and I'm guessing in yours too, the fish, the Atlantic salmon, I'm guessing that most people love that they have that, that those fish are there, right? They probably don't want to lose them. And I feel like that maybe that's what we need to do a better job of educating them, right? Letting them know the benefit of removing
I think
dams.
so. I mean, and that's where Norway, for example, in many ways, they're, of course, they have a lot of hydro dams as well, but they have in many rivers at least built the dams in a way, or they made the hydro plant in a way that it didn't destroy the migration. Orkla River, for example, close to Trondheim, where I fish a lot, they are like in the middle of the river where you have the biggest fall height. They just steal water by like leading it out to a tunnel. So they steal water that then comes into the river further down again, like 20 kilometers further down. So the actual power plant is in the tunnels within the mountain.
Oh, wow. And the river is like starved of water in that section?
Yeah, not starved, but they steal like 50%, but it's still fishable all the time and the fish can still migrate. So there are, of course, options that works for all of us. So yeah, they're good in that sense, even though they're bad in destroying the ocean habitat for the Atlantic salmon with all the farming. So yeah.
Gosh. If you're looking for a world-class fly fishing experience, it's time to check out Mountain Waters Resort. Nestled along Newfoundland's legendary Portland Creek, this spot has a history that runs as deep as the Atlantic salmon that call it home. Once a fly fishing retreat for the great Lee Wolf, today it's your turn to step into these historic waters and swing up your salmon this year. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/mountain waters right now and make it happen. That's wetflyswing.com/mountain waters. Let's get out there today. San Juan Rodworks started with a simple belief: great fly rods and gear shouldn't cost a fortune. As a family-run company, they focus on building high-quality fly fishing products that perform on the water without the premium price tag. You can try San Juan Rodworks for 30 days risk-free right now, and if you're not satisfied, send it back for a full refund. You can go to sanjuanrodworks.com. That's SANJUAN rodworks.com. Well, there's a lot going. Obviously, that's part of the reason there's some challenges with Atlantic salmon. I think there's some great groups out there. We've talked to them recently, conservation groups doing good stuff, internationally and, across. But I want to talk, you mentioned it going back to the lines, I think, so we've got a little bit of that history, Spey, or the two-handed rods have been out there for a long time, the United, England and kind of that area, they came over and probably fished your waters. But really 1960s, it sounds like you started getting going, 1980s, things going, then early 90s, which is when the Spey revolution started here. It sounds like the same thing. What was the power taper? Describe that. What was that line? Was it a Scandi?
Like a Scandi shooting head, still within the time frame where it was still custom. So you bought a head where you cut and trimmed in to perfectly fit your style and personality and your rod. So very few. Well, the first pre-looped lines, they weren't around until like after the millennium. So still people customized.
Right. So there was 10 years there where Guideline had lines, but it was more like grab your line and cut it to your certain length.
Yeah. Well, more or less everyone. There were very few that started making some, but there was still like a little bit of the limitations within.
Well, what were they using? The lines that were just, what were they using? The long belly lines, I guess.
Yeah, like way back, it's just those silk Spey lines or double tapered silk line.
Yeah. Super,
and then when there's
not efficient.
No, exactly. Then we started coming into the PVC, of course. They were still then using double tapered PVC lines, or which was used here in Sweden and Scandinavia for a long time as well. There was a lot of guys back in the 80s and even in the 90s still using long, like weight forward Spey lines, full floating, maybe a polyleader. But then I think it was in the 90s where the whole shooting head thing really took off, because there were then slowly getting more and more brands doing the shooting head thing, and people started noticing that this is definitely beneficial in every way. Well, everything has its pros and cons. I still love full Spey lines as well now and then.
Yeah, you do.
I love it. But if I'm going to be as efficient as possible, I have a bunch of different shooting heads with me because it's way easier to fastly adapt to the situation I'm facing. You're a little bit more limited with a reel with a full Spey line on it, of course. It's like trout fishing. If you have a reel with a weight forward, then you need spare spools, or it's so fast to just change the head, or now we are using so much multi-tip shooting heads. So that's even another level to making it fastly adaptable when fishing.
Right, yeah. Hey, there's still a lot of innovation going on at Guideline. Are you always, because you're kind of in the middle of all of it, are you always trying to tweak, like for the next year, like change the line a little bit, or do you guys have a set of lines that are pretty much good to go and there's not much tweaking needed?
Well, we tweak what we can and we try to experiment, and that, like, for example, lands on my table what I see, for example, when I'm out fishing, meeting people at my hosted trips. That's a very good way for me to notice if there are new things out there, or people's perspective towards things, and my personal taste as well. And then we try to tweak what we can. But I mean, the last decade, so much things has happened. So right now we're finding ourselves in a situation where there are very minor tweaks what we can do, because the lines today are so good. But I mean, we still, for example, when it comes to multi-densities, we experiment by changing the density split or the weight distribution of the line, experimenting with different softness of coating to try and get a better energy flow. And so there are always some small things. And of course, then it also goes sometimes in circles. It's like what's trending right now when it comes to length of a head. Then after a while, it gets more popular with shorter heads. And then all of a sudden you get a few years. Yeah,
it goes back.
But we try, of course, to innovate what we can. We're still finding things here and there, like our latest multi-tip body that we released last year, the classic Scandi. That is, of course, up to date, definitely the best multi-tip we have made when it comes to easy to cast, weight distribution, suppleness.
That's the classic Scandi?
Yeah, the classic Scandi body, which took over after what we had before, which was the 4D body concept.
Okay, classic Scandi. And how would you explain it? You know, again, somebody's listening now, let's say they're trying to understand, they haven't done it yet. Like they hear, Skagit versus Scandi. How do you describe that? Do you guys, if you have somebody looking at your lines, maybe describe that a little bit. What's the difference between Skagit and Scandi for you? And do you have both styles?
Yes and no, in a way, because I mean, today, the whole categorizing Scandi, Skagit, Spey, the Spey it's in its own column. I mean, because they tend to be longer or noticeably longer in length. of total line length or head length. But today we have Skagit heads crossing over to what used to be or still is referred to as typical Scandi.
That's right. Yeah, there's overlap now. You have
Exactly.
these lines coming out, and they're calling them. Yeah, I don't know what the names, but there's certain. Everybody has some where they're like a mix. It's kind of like a Scandi Skagit mix.
Yeah, exactly. In my opinion, this is my personal opinion. Everything that we're casting is a shooting head. Some are short and heavy, some are long and light, some are long and heavy, some are short and light, but it's still a shooting head. And then you have the Skagit style of casting, which is the sustained anchor casting. But you can still do that with a full Spey line. So
you can, right?
But it's more difficult due to a longer line. Everything needs to be more correct within the cast. But we, for example, within Guideline, we have some line that we're calling the compact Scandi or 4D compact.
Yep, compact, right?
Which is in length terms, that is more of a Skagit. But for us, we are using that as a short Scandi line. And the difference in general is when we're differentiating these two categories is if it's used as a Scandi line, it's normally you do a single Spey or a snake roll or something. But if you're doing the snap tee or parry poke, then you're into what often is referred as Skagit casting, but it's or sustained anchor. But I mean, as I said, I use a lot of these Scandi lines, and if I miss the setup in a sweep or direction change, I just dump it into a parry poke. But it's still my Scandi line.
Yeah, I gotcha. So there's tons of overlap, and that's the thing. The more we go into this, probably the more overlap there will be, right? It'll just keep, and new things will come out of it. And there might be, Scandi, I guess we try to make it easy, right? How would you describe that for, again, back to a new person who's listening right now? They're thinking about getting into it. Do they start with the species first, the rod first, the length? Like, where does somebody, if they want to choose, where would you tell them? Where do you start? How do you know what to give them?
Well, I mean, when it comes to, there's different perspectives when it comes to how to choose our tackle within fly fishing itself. I mean, but when it comes to salmon or Spey fishing, it's often, okay, what length of a rod do I need? And then, of course, the estimated line weight follows. But if it's a semi-wide river, I'm going for Atlantic salmon or big steelhead in a larger steelhead river.
Well, let's take this one, Tellis. And I like to use, and I'm not sure if you've been over to Newfoundland, but we're heading over there to Mountain Waters Resort. We're going to be fishing for Atlantic salmon and probably some brook trout too, but Atlantic salmon is the focus. It's a pretty, from what I hear, a pretty decent sized river, and it's windy, right? And so it sounds like they use single hand rods out there quite a bit, because it's just that's what they've always done. But I know we've had some listeners go over there and use double handed rods. What would you think on that? A big river with lots of wind, is that in Atlantic salmon? Where would you start for somebody maybe new to it that's going?
Well, today, for example, I mean, the shorter rod, the easier it's to get high line speed, which is very needed when it's very windy. So if you take that reference to Patagonia, big sea run, relatively
let's go down there, right?
Relatively big river, a lot of wind. So down there, we're using short double handers, or even because today we have the switch rod, which is today we have like two categories within the switch. You have a single hand rated and double hand rated switch rods. And the double hand rated switch rod is literally just a short double hand rod due to the double hand rating. Those rods, because the benefit of a short rod, but still has a high line rating, is that you have a lot of weight in the line, and a short rod that will give you a lot of speed.
Punch.
Yeah, a lot of punch, a lot of speed. Yeah.
What's the length on those? What would be a length of
between
the short?
Between 11 and 12,
11
3,
and 12.
yeah, up to 12 and a half foot, maybe.
Yeah, so more of that, we call it a switch, or that's so in the middle kind of range.
Yeah.
Two-handed rods. Okay, and then you have the next level, which I think a lot of people also get into, which is maybe 12.6 up to 13.5, right? You have that next range. Is that kind of your range? Do you kind of have the three ranges, like that short and then the middle, and then maybe 14 to 15 foot?
Yeah, I would say so. And what we, for example, normal say over here in Sweden and Norway, if you were only having one Spey rod for Atlantic salmon overall, a 13 foot 8-9 weight is like,
Yeah, that's the one.
it's like the 9'5" or 9'6" weight for trout.
Yeah, that's the rod. So the 13 foot, and just be easy, say 13, doesn't have to be 13.3 or 13.6, but the 13 foot 8 or 9 is the one.
Yeah, 13 plus minus a few inch or something.
That might make it easier for this. So if somebody, is going on the trip, needs a new rod, and they want to do this, it could be that 13 foot 8, 9 and then let's just take that. So if we had that rod, what is that rod, first of all, in your, what would that be called in your quiver there?
Well, we have it. That's the thing. We offer great equipment from a lower price point all the way up to, the premium stuff.
Yeah, what would be let's go top of the line, like if somebody wanted the best, rod you guys have, what would that be?
We have the NT11 range, which has actually been very well noticed.
Yeah, the NT, we've heard about it. I think that's some of the stuff that we've been using, or folks have been using over here at, I believe at Togiak. I can't remember exactly, but they're using some of the bigger stuff out there.
Yeah, and it's been, the whole range within the trout and the salty stuff, as well as the Spey, has become very popular and very well received. Within that range, we have two different categories of Spey rods. We have the full range, which is the regular NT11 Salmon. Those rods, for example, then you have a 12 foot 9, 8, 9. That's the 13 foot 8, 9 in a way. But then they also have one range that's called the Fast Full Flex, which is with a little bit stiffer tip section and a softer butt section. So it's more of a full, deeper loading rod, which is more, maybe a little bit more similar to traditional Spey rods, or a little bit more Skagit rod action type. But all of them casts all types of lines. It's the more of a personal style, what kind of tempo you have in your casting.
Yeah, they can cast anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we had that 13 or whatever, 12, 9, somewhere in that range, what would be the line that would pair with that would be good for, say, we're heading out there for Atlantic salmon to maybe place with some wind?
Either the compact head, for example, the 25 gram, which is the grains. I'm not so good at grains.
Oh, right, 25 gram grains. Yeah.
Yeah. With then that matching tip within, like, for example, the 15 foot tip, 9 gram or 11 gram tip, for example.
Okay. But that's the compact head, so that'd be more of the shorter. And when would you go with the shorter compact head versus, say, a longer, not as compact head?
Well, it comes down to, for example, a short head. It's easy to move around when it is windy. It's also a little bit more user-friendly due to the fact that a shorter line will more easily fall into alignment with your rod, even if your sweep is a little bit off, so it's easier to move around.
For the beginner. So the beginner would want to get this compact line probably.
Yeah, I would say so. But also the advanced angler that wants a short head that's easy to just flip out when it's tight, or when it's windy, or when you're going to chuck big flies.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
Otherwise, you have the classic Scandi body, of course, which...
Classic Scandi.
Yeah. The 26 gram for those rods, for example, with the same type of tip setup. So it's the body will then be about 5 feet, 6 feet longer or shorter, depending which one you choose.
Okay, a little bit. And so that one would be good for, and again, like you said, you could do all your sustained anchor casts with that classic Scandi if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
If you just knew the snap T, that's all you could do, the kind of those casts, you could still use that classic Scandi.
Yeah, because if you look at a Scandi line, it's still, in relations to the rod length, it's still a relatively short line if you compare it to what we normally use on a weight forward for trout fishing.
Oh, it is, right. It is still pretty short.
So if we look at it from that perspective, for example, a 13-foot rod with a head that's 11 meters in total, that's a typical Scandi setup. But many 9'5" weight rods, you're using weight forward lines that has the same head length, which you still do roll casting or switch casting with. And so, but it's just, it's a little bit matter of getting used to the rod length and of course the environment. If it's windy and you're chucking big flies, it's always nice to get to a shorter, more aggressive head.
Yeah, the compact. It'd probably be smart to have a couple of heads, maybe, or a couple of lines here, right? You'd have your compact maybe, and the Scandi. So depending on the conditions and what you felt like. And if you're, I mean, I think here we're fishing stuff on the surface. It's all dry. Fish are coming up to, so I think the classic Scandi will be good. But if it gets windy, maybe the compact would be the thing to have in your satchel there, right? In case things get crazy.
It's never a bad idea because, I mean, as you said, turning over a big bomber in headwind with a long tapered nylon leader, it's nice to have a little bit more of a truck of a fly line to push.
Yeah, exactly. What about the fishing performance? If you think about that dry line, you're on the surface, is there a major difference between the performance of the swing on those two?
Well, I mean, that is the benefit if we move even further to Spey-line, or Scandi or Skagit. The longer the actual weighted part of the line, the head is, the easier it is to control the whole swing by mending downstream or mending upstream. Yep. The shorter the head or the more amount of monofilament shooting line you have, the more difficult it's going to be to actually affect how that line is moving. But of course, it's possible. We do a lot of high sticking, even do a lot of aerial mends before it lands, so we can like manipulate how it lands before the first impact on water. I think that's key. So if we want it to be swinging with a more 90-degree kind of across, then I try to do that mend already in the air by, if I'm shooting across, I push the rod towards downstream myself or towards my bank, which will be, the line will land in a 90-degree angle. But if I hold the rod or even lift it upstream, it will be more, what's the opposite then?
Yeah. You're holding it. You're the opposite of that, which is you're trying to stop the fly line and position it so it fishes better.
Yeah, exactly. You get more of that. I mean, the typical difference, because I've been steelheading twice on the Deschutes, and the main, a beautiful place. But the main difference, what I've learned, the little thing I've done with Atlantic salmon or steelhead compared to Atlantic, is that steelhead, we try to more or less present the fly several times more visible, more slowly, like mending upstream to have that more of a dangle, while Atlantic is more getting it across with a higher speed.
Across and speeding it, because Atlantics want you faster, right? You kind of want to kick that. And so you're throwing it out 90, and they might hit it at 90. They might land, and they might hit it out there right when your line hits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I do upstream mend because it depends on the current. So there's always the environment or the pool and the structure of the water and everything that also affects so much how I want that to. So sometimes 90 degrees, if the main current is pushing in the middle of the river, my line will then be presented for the fish before the fly, which I don't want, which means I will maybe high stick upstream to force the line into that swinging curve that I want, and then start to follow.
Yep, that's it. That's so good. So like I said, we're heading to this, to Newfoundland, and they have a lot of people, the guides up there, I think they're all using for the most part, single-handed rods. What would be if we were doing that, what would be the single-hand rod that we'd want to be using? And do you have that in your lineup? Like, are people doing that at all? Or are there people fishing for Atlantic salmon with single-hand lines?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, both in Norway, for example, the single-hand rod often comes up in the back-end season, unless you're fishing the small rivers. Used for high summer, low water conditions. 10-foot 7 weights, 10-foot 8 weights, or 9.5 footers. But around here, for example, around the west coast of Sweden, our rivers are rather small. So we use what we in Scandinavia call the true switch rod, which is basically longer single-hand rods, like 11-foot 7 weights, which you can use as a small double hand, but it's still line rated as a single-hander. We have that, for example, in our range called the ULS, the ultralight Scandi, which are single-hand rated switch rods. Those are my personal favorites for Atlantic and sea run trout here along Sweden, and then smaller Norwegian rivers as well.
Yeah, ultralight Scandi. So that's the line. And then, like you said, you could do a 9.5 or 10 or even 11 foot, that switch, get into that for the length. And what is the longer length of rod? What are the benefits and maybe disadvantages of the longer rod for that?
Well, For example, if you look at fishing a salmon river with a 9.5 foot compared to then the ULS 11 foot, but still with the same line weight, the benefit of that extra rod length, it's the same with the big double handers. It's easier to control the mend. It's easier to control the fly and the swing. It's of course easier to create that distance that you want, even though you might reach it with 9 foot. It's easier to do it with an 11 footer. It's the same with 13 versus 15 foot when I'm fishing in Norway, for example. Many times the 13 foot will definitely be enough, but some of the pools I will be more efficient with the 15 footer because it's easier for me to reach the points I need to reach.
Right. Do you think the 15, I think we see a lot more 13 and a half in the 13 range. And there's some, like 14, we were using 14s for Chinook up there in Alaska. Do you think there's going to be more and more towards the higher 15, maybe 16, 17 foot rods back to that range as we go because of the tech and the lightness of the rods? Or what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it goes ups and downs in trends. Yeah, it does. But I mean, in general here in Scandinavia, we see, especially in the north of Sweden, in the big northern rivers, the Baltic rivers, in the spring fishing or early, like the chrome season, you barely see anyone with anything shorter than a 15 footer, often 16, where you will still be able to reach with 13 and a half or 13.9, but just the sheer casting of big heavy sinking lines, the deep wading, often with spring flood, you're wading to your nipples, and I mean, if you're
right, you need that extra length to help with your cast, right?
Especially if you're like me, you're below 6 foot. I need any inch I can get on the rod.
That's right.
I'll use it.
Yeah, that's right. Is there where's the end? I mean, what's your length? How long do you go, and what's the longest rod you've casted?
The longest one we have in our range now for a few years, which we still have in both the Chrome and the NT11, is 15.9. 10-11 weight. The longest rod I've ever casted, or I regularly cast, is 18, but that's only in Spey casting competitions.
Spey comps, right? Yeah, and that's because at a certain point you just don't get the advantage of more feet on a rod. It's just why is the 18 not as good as say the 16 or the 17?
When it comes to practical fishing, I mean 17 foot you still see out there, but it's like the tipping point. It gets exponentially more heavy because of I mean, it's a very long lever that you need to.
Yeah, right. You're still a person. You're a human down there trying to move this giant. So it's like the extreme would be they had a 25 foot rod out there. There's a certain point where you're not strong enough or whatever.
No, exactly. Or you don't get the benefit of it. It's the same with within the Spey comp, for example. I mean, we experimented using extremely long heads for a while, but then after a while we started shortening it down because we realized that we were losing speed.
Oh, right.
So in theory, yes, you will cast the longer line further because it's a longer line, but if the velocity of the line goes down, you're not gaining anything. It just becomes more difficult for no reason. So it's the same there with a rod. There's a fine line, and everyone needs to find their sweet spot a little bit. The same with the line length when practical fishing as well. What might be perfect for me might not be perfect for you.
Discover the Montana Fly Fishing Lodge, nestled along the federally designated wild and scenic East Rosebud River with 1.5 miles of exclusive private frontage. Their all-inclusive luxury experiences combine world-class fly fishing on legendary waters like the Yellowstone, the Bighorn, and Stillwater rivers with rustic elegance in their spacious lodge and luxurious canvas cabins. Beyond fishing, explore the stunning Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness through guided adventures, or simply relax on their outdoor fire pits surrounded by quaking aspen and cottonwoods. With capacity for up to 18 guests, private Spring Creek stock trout ponds, and a fully equipped fly shop, every detail is designed for the perfect Montana escape. You can book now and experience that ultimate combination of responsible fishing practices, breathtaking scenery, and unmatched hospitality at Montana's premier fly fishing destination. You can head over to montanaflyfishinglodge.com right now and check in with them and see what they have available. That's flyfishinglodge.com. Yeah, it's pretty cool because it's like an evolution. We're all going through it, whether you're starting, today, or whether you're like a master and you've been doing it for 20 years. There's always some room. Is that how it's looked for you? I mean, what does your Spey kind of evolution look like? Are you still, getting better at things? Do you still have things to work on? And you mentioned competition. Is that something you've done in the past?
Yeah, I competed. I still compete, even though I'm not as I am not as hungry anymore. But I've competed since 2010. I won the World Championship a couple of times in Spey.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So, and this was the World Championship at, which one is this in?
The first one was 2016 in Estonia. It's the ICSF, the International Casting Federations, which is the 15-foot Spey event. And then you have the single and, of course, the trout events as well. But I tend to jump into a lot of events, even though Spey is the one I actually practice a little bit. But when it comes to my personal fishing, I've become more adjustable. There was a period of time where I was like, no, I don't care if it's high flooding. I'm going to fish my full Spey floating line, right. Because I was just being. You were stuck.
Not stuck, but you just had a way you wanted to fish, which is great.
Which I still do, but today, I mean, if I'm coming to a river and I see this pool is that and that narrow, and I need to get down okay, I'm gonna rig something similar to a Scandi line, or if it's a long swinging pool and it's shallow, then I'm gonna bring the Spey line. So today, I'm enjoying the fact that I have the knowledge and a possibility to adapt and be optimized in what I'm doing.
Right. That's awesome. Well, take us back to the Estonia. Is that was your first time winning the world championship? Describe what that was like, and take us there.
Yeah, it was of course very cool because I've been into sports in different kinds of ways my whole life, and then of course fly casting as a fly angler and fly casting nerd. It's always been very fun in many ways, and of course. Well, everything aligned perfectly at that time because when I won the qualification round, and I felt that I actually have a possibility here now to do something. And I mean, sometimes you need to get lucky as well, because I remember when the finals started, it's a reversed order. So it's 6 people goes to the final. So if you win the final, you're the last one out. So the guys before me, the first few guys went out. It was like dead calm, no wind, no tailwind, no headwind, no nothing. It's just dead calm. And then a small breeze picked up as a headwind. So the 3 guys prior to me was also struggling with having this small headwind. But then it died off a little bit, and then I came out and the wind picked up again. And I did probably one of my best casting rounds I've ever done. I've never used as much power without
failing.
Yeah, but it was impossible because the breeze just pushed the line all the time. But then I had like a window of, I don't know, a minute, 50 seconds where it died off, and I managed to get one proper cast in, and as that cast lands, you can actually see it on the video. The wind the wind is actually starting to pick up again. So I had that small window of opportunity.
Is that video out there? Could we see that?
Yeah, it's on both my YouTube channel, and I think there are some other people that put that.
What's your YouTube channel?
Well, if you search Tellis Katsogiannos or Tellis Spey casting, you will find it on YouTube.
Okay, good. We'll put that in the show notes so we can take a look at that here after this one. So that's cool. So basically, in like a lot of professional, like athletes and professional sports, I mean, that's what's amazing about sports, is that it's the highest level and people can get in a zone. And so they're at this place and you're seeing stuff that like maybe has never been done before. And it feels like you had that little moment of a zone, and then Mother Nature cooperated for a minute. And then you won. Did that cast, was that the one that actually won it for you?
Yeah. So I had it, I think I managed to do 3 casts within those 50 seconds or a minute with no wind. The first one was okay. I think that put me on a bronze or something. Then I made a bad cast, which I just quickly retrieved, and then I threw the 3rd cast away, and then That was the winning one.
Wow. And you win, and this you take home basically and how does that work with, because we hear a lot about the Spey-orama, over here. Is there an international or is there just multiple events around the world on this?
Well, I mean, the Spey-orama, for example, I have a lot of good friends, both from Sweden, but between the whole tournament casting scene that's been over several times. I have unfortunately not had the time because it's always colliding with my high season of work.
But it's a similar event. The Spey-orama is similar to the one you won.
The difference is the Spey-orama also includes the snake roll on left and right shoulder. So you're performing as right and left single Spey and right and left snake roll in this World Championship, which is by Sport Federations, the official one, official World Championship. We only do left and right single Spey.
Okay, gotcha. So this one is basically the one you won is kind of more of the official. It's accredited by who? Who's the accrediting board?
International Casting Sport Federation. So when, for example, the Swedish Casting Federation, we're on National Sport Federation in Sweden, which also includes like football and hockey and all that kind of thing. So in Sweden, it is actually referred as to a real sport. And we get funded by the Swedish government. So it's, but the Spey-orama is what everyone calls, but it is in many ways the World Championship. I'm not going to say anything else than that.
Right.
The highest level of casters is always there as well, and many of those guys and women they tend to attend the ICSF's ones as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it kind of goes both ways. Yeah, we've heard some stories from the history they've been pretty interesting. I think. Gosh, one of them, goes back to, I'm trying to think of the name. One of the famous line designers, I think it was Don Green or Jim Green. One of them was a big Spey caster, and he went over and competed over in one of the international events in Europe. And basically, because of the line design and what he was doing with the rods, he was just like dominating. And this was probably back in the 60s or 70s with single hand rod. But it turned out it was this interesting thing. But I think that a lot of the tech, right, can improve, right? The rods, the lines. How much when you're doing these casting competitions does that affect? You have some new technology that comes in and all of a sudden one person is dominating or there's a company. Have you seen that throughout the years?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that happened about 10 years ago or so, that one competition line, that there are a handful of Spey lines out there for competition, but the one that like put the level up quite significantly was a line called Gale Force from James
Gale
Chalmers.
Force. That's right.
The equalizer head. When everyone got a hold of that, it brought the Spey casting to another level for all of us. And I'm still using the same line. I've tried some really cool lines from Celestials as well. That's really good. But then when it comes to rods, of course, we have one, for example, in the NT11 Guideline range, the NT11 tournament, a 15-foot rod. I mean, the weight of that competition rod it's so ridiculously light. So it is easier to cast these distances today. But so what used to be, 50 meters is still a hell of a cast, but it's been done so frequently due to the tackle.
Oh, right.
So it's pushed the limit further and further up.
Well, again, I love the sports analogies. I go back to, like sports again, you could look at basketball, you could look at the Olympics, NBA. I'm not sure if you're a basketball fan, but basketball is, like Stephen Curry. The guy went from, nobody was shooting like from half court and stuff like that. But this guy comes in, he starts shooting these 3-pointers, which are way far. I'm not even sure how many feet or meters, and nobody thought it could be done before, so nobody did it. But once he started doing it, and now you look at the NBA and everybody's shooting from the same distance. They're way out there shooting because they saw this guy that made, broke the mold. I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about maybe with these rods, is that you get something that breaks the mold and they realize, oh, I can actually cast 10 feet further with my line. Do you think people will keep casting further, or is there some limit to how far you can actually cast?
Well, we used to say, this is the limit. The same with the trout distance, for example, which used to be a competition as well held in the US called the Best of the West, for example, the 5-weight trout distance casting. When I started, 40 meters was like, no, that's an impossible reach. which is still used the same line today. It's an expert distance line for scientific anglers. We're still using the same line, but today there are hundreds of people throwing over 40. Because it is, what you say, I mean, when someone shows that it's possible, then the barrier is broken. So I think we haven't seen the longest cast yet, but I think because as long as we don't change the rules of what we're allowed to use, and when it comes to line length or head length, weight, diameters, if we would remove the regulations, then we would see further casting. But within the rules that we have, I'm starting to think that I don't really see how we are going to push it further. It is if people would start training like Olympic athletes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, which there is some we've heard. I've never met Steve Ray Jeff in person, but I've heard that he's like the perfect specimen of, strength and like all that, right? So there's probably some advantage although I have heard also, I mean, women have won the world, the championship Spey-rama, and they're some, not very big people, right? So there's people that you can be shorter and still do well and dominate.
Absolutely, because when it comes to, I mean, there are many sports out there, and fly fishing is one of them where, yes, if you apply more force on a perfect timed technique, it will go further. The problem is that the fly cast itself, it's so technical and it has so much
right, like
timing,
little minor little minor things can make a big difference in
and the fact that the object that we're throwing away, the line, it's still stuck to the rod. So just the thing that you can throw a perfect cast and then you might lower the rod tip a little bit too fast, or you're not lowering it fast enough, the shooting resistant might be taking a feet or so off the cast. I mean, there's so many small details where the human error always occurs. That's which makes it so beautiful, because there isn't the perfect fly cast has never been made. If you look at it from a theoretical perspective, there are always room for some small improvement, even in the most long, beautiful cast we ever seen. There's always something we can find in it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this has been great. Tellis, I think I've got a few more. We're going to do a little segment here. We already actually did it, our Wet Fly Swing Pro shout out segment. So we have our community where, we're meeting up and chatting and building trips and stuff like that. And, I want to shout out to Tim Carpenter in there. He's one of the guys that's really wanting to get into this. And so I want to do that. I'm looking at your website as we kind of transition into this guideline. It says Silver Week. It says wild fish stocks are struggling in many parts of the world, and you're doing your part. You're dedicating a percentage, 30% of all B2C sales during a period of November 21st through the 30th. This episode will probably go out after that, but tell us about that. I think that's pretty amazing. Where did that come from? Have you guys looking to do more of that in the future?
Well, we try to support, of course, conservation work and everything we can do. I mean, if everyone does a little bit, in the end, it becomes quite a lot. And what we are doing here with the Silver Week is kind of a way within this whole Black Friday, Black Week, right. Everyone is just discounting everything. We're doing the opposite, where it's just full retail price, but that margin, when people are buying, we are giving that away. So instead of just following and doing Black Friday and trying to empty our stocks, we rather see that money goes to something good.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we're big supporters of all the I mean, I think most fly anglers are, I'm sure, because it's our, what we love depends on it, right? Protecting these fish. And there is some amazing, we've been working with Patagonia out there, this year. And, they've been doing some, we just heard about their their swift current waders. And so how they're trying to remove PFAS, which is one of those forever chemicals. And they've removed it from all their lineup. And so it's not there anymore. And they're continuing to, again, I think it's like that thing when people see like, hey, this company can do this. Well, now other companies will follow. I feel like you're doing the same thing here where you're saying, hey, we're going to. Yeah.
And we actually, when it comes to waders and PFAS, Guideline actually is in more or less all our waders, we stopped using PFAS already in 2018.
Oh, wow.
So we have, I mean, everything that we do ripples on water and hopefully more follows. The same with Patagonia. I mean, they're a big powerhouse, and they do some great work, of course. And I mean, what we all have to do, I mean, we have this motto within Guideline we call clean all the way, where we try to minimize our footprint. We have rod series, for example, the elevation, where we have a lot of eco features. Just a simple thing as not polishing the blank leaves less carbon dust. Recycled materials within the tube. We have many of our waders have recycled materials. So we're trying to do what we can. I think all of us are in many ways. And
Yep. Do you find, again, I'm just comparing because I haven't spent any time over in Sweden. I'm hoping to get over there sometime soon. But, when you look at the countries, we see like you got companies like Patagonia, but then you have companies that are the exact opposite that are probably really hammering the environment. Do you think in Sweden, is it pretty much a similar thing where you've got companies or is there more a ethos over there of kind of conservation and all that?
In general, I think in Europe, especially Northern Europe, we are very aware of all these things. Yeah, and but then of course there is a fine line between greenwashing and doing something properly done, and will always be
cutting corners. People that are cutting corners,
of course. And I mean, we at some points we can. I mean, for example, carbon fiber. I mean, if we would have a eco-friendlier replacement for the same performance of our fly rod, we would use it, but there isn't. But we can minimize what we put on the rod. We can use recycled components. We can minimize the way we ship and pack it. So there are ways around, and some way things we just need to accept as well. But there is always things we can do, and that's what we are trying a lot with the whole product development. That's one of my jobs as well, trying to find ways to make a fly rod more sustainable, or a fly line as well. For example, we don't have any PFAS in any of our fly lines today. So it's moving forward. It takes time. You kind of need to have muscle to make things change, unless everyone is changing together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's, I think some companies have more money, so it's probably easier for them to do things versus, say, somebody that's just starting out or, whatever, not at the same level. But, well, before we get out here, I want to hear if we missed anything on other, gear as far as we've talked a lot about Spey. Is there anything else you want to highlight about Guideline, we didn't touch on, or you want to make sure people are aware of with as far as from the gear end?
Well, I mean, we're having the portfolio that we have. We do have more or less tackle for all types of fly fishing today. We're even coming out later this or in the beginning of next year with our first range of tropical lines as well.
Nice. Yeah, because salt is big. You guys have a saltwater selection, right, of rods right now?
Yes, rods. We have reels that's very suitable, and it's also going to come a more specialized reel for it. Last year, we launched both the Eon and Scandi fly reels, which are our best reels to date. Very, very beautiful crafted reels. And within our wading, as we talked about clothing and sustainability, we have a couple of waders, or the second version is coming out in 2026, the Driva wader, which is made of 100% recycled materials. Extra durable polyester coating. So it's that is our definitely most sustainable wader to date. And also when it comes to fitting and durability and everything, it's become a really, really good product and was very well received in 2025.
Yeah, gotcha. So yeah, you got the waders and the reels I'm looking at them now. They're pretty. You got a nice mix of reels too. It looks like some that are ultralight and a mix. What would be we mentioned that rod, the NT11 13 or the 12.9, I think 8.9. What would be a good reel that would match with that one?
Depends on if you like a little bit more weight.
Classic. Let's think a little more weight, like classic style.
Yeah, then the Eon 7.9 would suit perfectly on the 8.9. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Eon. The Eon it's spelled AEON, right? Yeah. It looks like a classic, something from the 60s or something like that, but it looks different, and that reel is a little heavier.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. And it's cool that you say that, because the whole project idea was for Guideline to create what we call a timeless reel, which in many ways it is, because it's a reel that doesn't look like any reel that we have ever done before. And it plays a little bit, which you said, with the whole old school, but it still has a very modern touch to it. So that one, and the sound, of course, the sound of that when a steelhead or a salmon takes off.
Is that a click and paw?
Oh yes, it is.
It is. There you go.
That's gonna scream from the river valley.
Nice. So that's got the sound. Yeah, it's got the click. It's cool. We just did an episode with it was Jim Adams, who has he basically has collected gear for 70 years, classic and vintage, and he in the reels. I mean, he was showing me a lot of, like Hardy, right? Hardy has some of these old reels from the whatever year back in the day, and they're just classic. And I think a lot of companies, you see some of these newer classic style reels, but I think there's something about the classic that just, I don't know what it is. It's like it kind of feels good, Although the other stuff is probably lighter, right? The newer stuff is probably a lighter reel.
I think it comes down to us humans, how we are. You just look at cars. I mean,
that's true.
An old, well-polished vintage car, everyone loves it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and some people like to drive a pickup truck, and some people like to drive a Volkswagen van, right? Yeah. Everybody's different. So, okay, cool. Well, we're going to get out of here in a sec, but I wanted to get a couple of tips before we get out of here on the Spey. So we kind of have the setup, we're getting ready for, maybe somebody's kind of getting ready for that next trip. What would you be telling them? You're a casting expert. I mean, we couldn't ask a better person. They're out there, they've got the setup, and they're getting ready to go. What are a couple of things you tell that person to have more success if they're maybe either starting out or they've been doing it a while, but they've been struggling to get, the length and all that?
What I've seen as a casting instructor over the years is one of our biggest enemies in all fly casting and Spey casting included is when we have slack in our system. So, for example, one of the things I still focus when I'm casting is I always start with my rod tip low. So I'm always very focused in slowly starting to lift that line and rod. So when I slowly lift the rod and the rod tip, I see how the line slowly gets out of the water. And I have this saying in the back of my head, don't stop moving the line until you're done what you're supposed to be doing, which is finishing the sweep. So I'm just slowly lifting that line and then gradually moving into that backward sweep. Because if you stop and pause, you can still make a cast. But the problem is then, as soon as the tension goes away, you need to re-stretch the line. So line tension, if you can feel the weight of the line, if you can feel the tension of the line when you're moving the rod tip, you can easily move it. So if you constantly feel it, that's what many people refers as the load or but it's the tension. As soon as I start moving the rod, I will either bend. If I move the rod aggressively, I will just bend the rod towards the weight of the line. But if I slowly move or starting to think that I'm going to move the line and not bend the rod bend is an effect of me moving the heavy object. So to simplify it, just if you start low with the rod tip and then slowly lift and look at the belly, look at the line and how that is actually moving, and what you visually will see, you can also feel.
Yeah, you can feel it. So that's a good start. So start with what you're saying is rod tip.
Close to the surface. Yeah, close to the surface.
Close to the surface. Slow. And when you start that, do you start slow and do you kind of start slowly speeding up as you go to getting to the load position, or is it the same speed throughout the whole sweep?
There is a small acceleration, but the lift itself does not really contain any acceleration, because if I lift with a little bit too much aggression or a little bit too much speed,
yeah, you could blow your anchor.
Yeah, I will, or the initial thing is that I will direct energy up.
Oh, up, which you don't want. You want the energy kind of going back, be in the D loop.
Exactly. So when you just start to lift that rod, the line doesn't have a direction yet. It will just slowly come out of the water. And then when you start to accelerate in a straight path horizontally backwards, then the line is getting the direction. But if I'm lifting with speed, I'm getting a direction straight up. And from that point, when I'm moving backwards, I will create that wave, the dip that will crash my anchor. So slowly just getting that line it's like a dynamic movement. So when you see that starts to move, then you just gradually do a horizontal kind of sweep as the line comes out, and you're lifting your arms and waiting for your anchor. And then you cast it. So my key thing is start low and slow and look and feel that line. And when the direction change itself, the sweep backwards, I use that the reference. If you think about driving a car, the forward cast is the easy part. That's the straight out on the highway. You can just put the pedal to the metal.
Cruise control. Yep.
Yeah. But if you think about the direction change, the whole creating of the D loop, the changing of angle and everything.
Yeah.
If you're driving on a gravel road and you're going to take like a steep curve in the middle of the forest on a loose gravel road.
Right.
Do you want to go fast or do you want to go slow?
Right. Yeah. You want to go slow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Otherwise, you will end up in the forest with your car. It's the same with a Spey-cast. If you lift and add, the first thing you do is add a lot of speed into that sweep, you will not stay on the road. So lifting the line out and keeping a little bit high movement height will be the help for you to slow down. And then you just turn your body. I'm using a lot of body when I'm casting.
Okay. Yeah. Body's big. Right.
But I can also I can send you some because we did some good videos with Guideline, me explaining and showing.
Oh, nice.
Spey casting. So I can send you those links.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, if you could send those links, we'll get those in the show notes and people can look at those right now.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome. So cool. Well, let's give you one random one before we get out of here. We talked sports. I love the sports analogies. It sounds like. Do you have some other sports you've either played in your life or you follow? Any big sports?
I used to compete in powerlifting for many years.
Oh, wow. So weightlifting.
The different weightlifting is the Olympic events, which you have the clean and jerk and snatch.
Yeah.
I used to do powerlifting, which is squat, bench press, and deadlifting.
Oh, okay.
I did that for many, many years, which I don't anymore. Now I'm more into dancing. I do salsa or go out.
Oh, cool.
Dance my ass off.
There you go. There you go. That's amazing. Yeah, dancing is not an easy thing to learn, right? Is that something that you've just picked up recently?
Yeah. I fell in love with it. I enjoy it. And otherwise, I still do a lot of strength training, or not a lot. I do a little bit of strength training, more yoga, mobility,
right?
Functional everyday kind of sports.
Yeah, that's right. Do you follow any professional sports? Is there I guess in dancing, I'm guessing there's probably some professional level stuff out there.
But I don't follow that much sport. I used to enjoy a little bit of heavyweight boxing.
Oh yeah, sure.
Not so much into football and those kind of things. I've been more into individual sports.
Individual. What was your boxing? What era were the fighters you were following in the heavyweight?
Yeah, I mean, even though I was young, I mean the whole Mike Tyson.
Yeah, Mike
era,
Tyson. Yeah,
we will never get that back.
No. Mike Tyson was was one of those freaks of nature. It was.
Yeah, and the whole. I mean, the whole. Not just him, but the whole boxing at that time.
Just that boxing thing, right? It's all changed. It's not like that anymore. Where you have one undisputed heavyweight champion. That's not. There's all these other, right? What is the biggest change between that and now, or say?
Well, I mean, back in the day, if you look at the amount of times Tyson, for example, defended his title within a year, and you have the heavyweight guys today, they're doing one fight a year, maybe, or even 1.5 years. So it was more fun to watch. It was more of a war zone.
Exactly. Well, and I go back to even further before my time, but in yours probably is Muhammad Ali, right? Back in the Thrill in Manila and those times where, talk about some grueling battles. That was crazy. That guy, and obviously he paid for it. That's the thing about boxing. That's a tough sport. You're probably going to take some mental abuse. It's kind of a crazy sport. But no, I grew up in it too. My dad was a big boxing fan, and so I watched all the boxing when I was a kid. That's what we did. We'd watch all the fights, and it was pretty amazing. I ran out of time now. I don't have as much time to watch the sports. So
that was the same here. I used to be watching a lot of movies. I loved the cinema and everything, but today I barely watch TV because I'm in a stage in life I rather do things than watch things.
That's right. Yeah, me too. Cool. All right, Tellis. Well, I think that we'll leave it there for today. We'll send everybody out to guidelineflyfish.com if they have questions for you or want to check in with anything else you have going. But yeah, I just want to thank you for all your time. This has been amazing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
If conversations like this hit the spot, casting talk, the gear design, and the behind-the-scenes stories, come hang out with us inside Wet Fly Swing Pro. It's where anglers are swapping real setups. We're getting honest truth about line recommendations and planning trips to places that people actually want to fish. We've also got a full slate of events and hosted sessions, including some fly tying events, casting sessions. It's all inside Wet Fly Swing Pro. Go to wetflyswing.com/pro, and you'll get reminded when we open our next cohort of Wet Fly Swing Pro. All right, stay tuned and subscribe to this podcast if you want to hear our next episode. We got some good stuff coming, including Littoral Zone. I know everybody loves, if you love a little Stillwater, you love a little Phil Roy Littoral Zone. Check in now, and we got that coming next week. All right, want to thank you for stopping in and hanging out this evening. And I hope you enjoy, have a good evening if it's evening. Hope you have a good morning. If it's afternoon and you're somewhere around the world, please check in with me. If I haven't talked to you already, send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. Would love to hear if you heard this podcast. Always appreciate making a connection. All right, until the next one, we will talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode,